that both on the way up and then on the way down. I feel like we need to address Apple because it's a significant mover. You own the stock. You were with us yesterday. It's moved sharply lower now. You know, they unveil this, Siri AI. They got the app, and there was a lot of enthusiasm, I think, in the lead up yesterday. But it sounds like, or at least it looks like, the market is going to ask some serious questions about what this really means for their AI future, whether they proved anything yesterday or it all remains to be seen.
Well, it probably does remain to be seen, Scott. I think they have defined what their strategy is, which is to not do a lot of CapEx, to partner with Gemini, with Google, Alphabet, to use their technology. And that's a defined strategy. It has some advantages to it in terms of cost. But as you just said, I think we're going to have to wait and see whether the new models, the new Siri, is attractive enough in the holiday season coming up. I think the tension here has always been, and we addressed this yesterday, the valuation versus the fact that it's Apple and it has the iPhone and it has the services. And today and yesterday, that tension is breaking towards the idea that maybe it's a little overvalued as we're looking right now at 32 times forward earnings. And it's also maybe emblematic of the NASDAQ writ large. Not that there is something catastrophically wrong with Apple or the NASDAQ, but that all of these stocks needed a pause. They needed a consolidation, which is what I think this is. I don't think it's something worse. The profit growth at all of these companies, the economic growth in the United States, it's just too strong to say that there's something worse than a consolidation going on. In an effort to be helpful to our viewers, I want to say that I'd be looking more to buy in the coming days. I think it's probably a little too late to sell unless you're saying to yourself that you think you can perfectly time a 5% move to the downside that may yet come in the NASDAQ. To me, that's being way too cute. If you've trimmed your positions, as all of us have said, trim your positions on the way up. You should have some capital with which to buy this dip in the next coming days.
Guys coming up, you're getting a lot of money, man. So just save it until you have a plan on what to do with it.
Yeah. Kristen, what are these conversations like? And, what is the longer term sort of effort here that's underway from JP Morgan's perspective?
Yeah, well, the numbers are staggering, as you know. Fewer than 2% of the college athletes go pro. Once they go pro, their career is usually over by the time they're 30. They don't have a college degree. It's usually over, not of their choice. And then even in a franchise as valuable as the NFL, 1 in 6 players declares bankruptcy when they get out of the sport over the course of 10 years. So there's a huge need here, and we want to partner with athletes to ensure that we can give them the knowledge and the skills they need to get there.
It is amazing. I mean, you got to feel for these kids, these students who are hearing from people knocking on their door with money, hearing from agents, trying to listen to their parents, trying to listen to the AD. How do they manage all those voices in their head right now?
Well, for me, I think, where my piece is just helping change the culture of money. And I think these conversations, they start when you're a kid in the home, but as, you turn 18, 19, 20 and you are blessed with all these opportunities, like it's on you. The burden is on you to start to have these conversations and become comfortable, with it. So, when it comes to finding out all these people, you just got to keep equipping yourself with knowledge and asking questions. I always tell guys to make sure you cross-reference, all the people that you meet when you're coming in contact with them, and just continue to be weary of the naked man offering you a shirt. That's one of those old proverbs. But definitely, ask questions. That's my.
Kristen, I sat down with you about 3 months ago when this council was first created, and I'm just curious, what's happened in the last 3 months? What have been the insights and the use cases that you found?
Well, the great thing about athletes is they know how to work. When we had that first council meeting, every single one of them was early, and we've had a number of follow-up conversations and follow-up emails. We're working on more of an interactive tool that they can work with to talk about how much to save, how much to splurge, because they're going to do it anyway, and how much to invest for the long run. We've gone out on college tours, and he's been our lead spokesperson on this, and it's really resonated.
I mean, we all hear about some of the higher profile college athletes who conceivably will go pro, but there's an entire layer that I would assume is getting money they may never see the likes of again, because to your point, they're not going to go to the professional ranks. What is the key piece of advice that you're sort of sharing with them?
Right. Like, think about the Knicks right now. New York is losing their mind over the New York Knicks, and every single one would say they got there on the backs of teammates and coaches who will never see the kind of money that Jalen Brunson or Cat will. And so I'm really proud of the fact that JP Morgan can take any type of investor. We're not just looking for the Kayvons and the Bradys. We want all of these kids to get the advice and the access to the resources they need to make that money last.
Kayvon, there is a concern in college sports now, though, about the concentration of power in a couple of conferences. Obviously, NIL money goes largely football and basketball, and that other sports may be starved for resources as you get this competition. I mean, I'm just curious to think, as your thoughts, given you were the initial class, I think, that was eligible, how you think about the debate right now around NIL.
Well, honestly, it's a competitive market, and that market is competitive for these schools because there is no salary cap. You know, there is nothing that is hindering these athletes from making whatever their hearts desire. So for me, I'm kind of all for it. You know, I think there is some bylaws that need.
Why memory stocks suddenly crashed before Micron earnings? Before Micron reported earnings, AI-related semiconductor stocks experienced a sharp sell-off. At first glance, many investors assumed something had fundamentally changed, but that wasn't the real case. The selling actually began overnight in South Korea. The KOSPI index nearly fell 10%, triggering a heavy selling across the memory stocks, especially SK Hynix and Samsung, two of the world's largest memory manufacturers. Several factors came together. Reports suggested that HK Hynix was temporarily prioritizing production of higher margin general purpose DRAM instead of accelerating some HBM4 production lines. Some investors immediately interpreted that weaker demand for Nvidia next generation Rubin platform, but that's not what report actually implied. If anything, it suggested that memory remains so supply constrained that manufacturers are allocating production toward the whichever product generate the higher returns. That's a supply issue, not a demand issue. At the same time, South Korea's stock market has become heavily leveraged. Margin debts has reached record level, and regulatory warned that semiconductor related ETFs has become overheated. When investors began taking the profit, leverage selling accelerated the decline across the entire market. The result was panic selling in memory stocks worldwide. Did AI demand suddenly slow? That's question everyone started asking. The answer, based on virtually every industry data point available today, appeared to be no. Multiple analysts covering Taiwan and Korea said that their supply chain checks till now AI demand is accelerating. Several indicators describe the current environment as roughly 50 units of demand of every 1 unit of available supply. Even companies that are building billions of dollars of new manufacturing capacity still cannot keep up with their customer demand. That's why prices remain elevated. That's why margins continue expanding, and that's why companies like Micron are signing the multi-year customer agreement. The debate isn't the whether demand exists. Everyone agrees that demand is enormous. The real question is how long can this last? Historically, memory has always been one of the most cyclic industry in the technology. When prices become attractive, manufacturers expanded production. Supply eventually caused the demand and prices collapsed. Margin disappeared, and investors who bought near the top often suffered. That's why memory companies traditionally traded at a very low valuation multiple. Today, however, many investors believe this cycle is fundamentally different. Instead of consumer electrics driving demand, artificial intelligence has become the dominant customer. Every new AI models require more memory, and every new GPU generation requires more HBM. Inferences workload continue expanding. Genetic AI requires larger memory pools. Physical AI and humanoid robots could increase memory demand even further. If that's true, then today's memory cycle could last for longer than the previous cycle. Why Micron earnings become so important? Going into the earnings, Micron wasn't just reporting quarterly results. The company was effectively answering one of the biggest questions in the technology. Is this another normal memory cycle, or has AI permanently changed the industry economics? Investors wanted answer to several critical questions. Are gross margins sustainable above the 80%? Will pricing remain strong into the 2027 and beyond? Are customers still placing massive long-term orders? Is AI demand beginning to slow? As it turned out, Micron answered every one of those questions positively. Management confirmed strong pricing. They confirmed tight supply beyond the 2027. They announced 16 strategic customer agreements and they revealed approximately $100 billion in committed backlogs. Those are numbers typically associated with traditional commodity business.